Hey, welcome back to Great American Movie Review. Thank you for joining me. If this is your first time, welcome. This is going to be another non-spoiler review for a new release film, and this time I'll be talking about Argylle. For those of you who don't know what Argylle is, it is a spy action comedy from director Matthew Vaughn, best known for X-Men First Class, Kick-Ass, Stardust, an extremely underrated film, and the Kingsman films. And so the film follows this character played by Bryce Dallas Howard. Her name's Ellie Conway. She's an author who writes these spy novels based on this character called Argylle. And as it turns out, her books get really close to the truth when it comes to the world of spycraft. And so she kind of ends up on this Romancing the Stone style adventure where she gets mixed up in the real world of the spycraft that she writes about because her books are so accurate that they're after her knowledge and information that she might have on certain things based on her latest book. Now, I'll let you know right off the bat, I am a big Matthew Vaughn fan. I've enjoyed pretty much all of his films until his latest couple Kingsman films, the first one, which I love, but the sequels I've not been as gung-ho about. I don't think they're terrible, but I've been wanting to see him get out of this Kingsman zone, and so I was very happy to see that he was doing a new original movie. It's still a spy movie, so kind of the same flavor to some extent, but definitely has a different feel to it than those films. So I was really looking forward to this, and I'll just have you know, it's not very good, which is really disappointing. Like, I really wanted to love this film, and I was starting to hear some bad things about it, and I wanted to be that contrarian voice that was just like, no, the film is really good, you just don't get it. And I'm like, I can't quite get there with it, unfortunately. That being said, the film has a lot of really fun ideas, and some of those I think pay off pretty well. But I think it really comes down to any greatness that the film would have had really got lost in the editing room because this film just doesn't fully come together, and particularly in the first half it just drags, especially for where the film is going. That first half is really just a slog. And for anybody who's going to the movie because it was advertising Henry Cavill really heavily as the lead, he was at the front of all the posters, all of that stuff. Not really his movie at all. There's this interesting dynamic, a kind of a framework where you have the world of her books and you kind of see it imagined through these characters. In that world, that's where you get the Henry Cavill, John Cena, Dua Lipa. These are just her book characters visualized for us, the audience, essentially. But also, she sees Henry Cavill just in the world, and she thinks she's just going crazy with like writer's block trying to get this last chapter out. And going into like the fun ideas that this movie has, there's a really great kind of framework that the movie uses with this kind of split book characters versus real life characters. The way it intercuts these things, particularly within action sequences, is a really fun thing that Matthew Vaughn does really well. Vaughn is known for his very over the top stylized action sequences, and those scenes in this movie are a delight. They are exuberant and just so much fun, and there's so much energy in it. But yeah, the film is not Henry Cavill's film. This is Bryce Dallas Howard's film and Sam Rockwell's film too. It's their dynamic, them as leads here, that really are the focus for the majority of the film. You also have a lot of supporting characters in the real world with Bryan Cranston, Catherine O'Hara, as well as Samuel L. Jackson showing up, and an underused Ariana DeBose, recent Oscar winner for West Side Story, just kind of getting very limited screen time, so don't expect too much from her, unfortunately. But yeah, the other major drawback for me in this film is just the visual quality of it. This was a big budget motion picture and it was made by Apple, and it'll end up on Apple TV Plus eventually. And unfortunately, this looks like a streaming original, one of these way inflated budget streaming originals like a Red Notice or a Six Underground or the other Apple original, Ghosted. None of those films are very good, and they all have this kind of horrible sheen to them, where it's just like digital photography mixed with an overabundance of CGI and not very well integrated at that. Lots of things where I'm like, if this was done practically, it would look better. And if if that means scaling it back, then that means scaling it back. Here, a lot of this thing looks like Spy Kids to me in the worst possible way. Like, I'm okay with Spy Kids looking like Spy Kids, but I don't want this $200 million blockbuster film looking like Spy Kids. Really just kind of garish and also too clean looking. There's no real visual texture to it. It's just bright and glossy. It doesn't look good. Now, I do love it when Vaughn goes all out, like I said, in the action sequences. Particularly the back half of the film has some really spectacularly gonzo sequences. I just wish the first half of the film really felt like it was leading to that. But this movie has this thing where I think this movie's main thing, honestly, is just the fact that it just will hit you with twist after twist after twist, which is why it's a little hard to talk about it in detail, because once the twists start coming, they don't stop coming. So it just keeps pulling the rug out from under you, and it just ends up feeling meaningless. And it really doesn't feel like they're doing twists for the sake of enriching the narrative, but rather they're just doing it for the sake of doing it. They're throwing you off, and that could be a fun conceit, but this movie's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and like I said, it drags for a long time. There's lots of jokes in the film too, not like in your face, like kind of Marvel style jokes that I know a lot of people don't like so much. More just humorous situations, but it just never really lands because the pacing of it is all just wrong. It's also maybe the most brazen marketing for the new Beatles song that I've seen yet, which is saying a lot because they've been pushing that song hard. Not that they wouldn't, it's a new Beatles song, but in here it was weird how heavily featured that song is. But yeah, a lot of really just fun ideas. I still feel like this movie has potential to be a good movie if somebody wanted to like go through and like trim it down a ton and just kind of let it be this really zippy, zany, fun little spy film. I also love what Bryce Dallas Howard gets to do in this role. Like, her role is a lot more than meets the eye, and there's a lot that she gets to do in this film, and it's really cool seeing her get to lead a film in this way. Like, but it just doesn't come together. This is a really big mess. But unlike those other streaming movies that I mentioned, I think this one will probably still find an audience. There's enough charm here in the cast and in the ideas that I think that there will be people who end up really loving this film. And I can't blame them for that, honestly. It just doesn't come together for me. It's way too dysfunctional. But yeah, that'll do it for my thoughts on Argylle. If you saw it or were planning on seeing it and had any opinions on it, just let me know in the comments. I'll get back to you on it if I feel like it's appropriate. But yeah, that'll do it. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you at the movies.